Okay. So the two of you, would you like to introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about your background.
So yes, good morning, everyone, and just thank you for this invitation to come out. My name is Wanda Ridgway. I am the Executive Director of Rise Up Rochester, where we empower our community to establish and maintain a nonviolent culture. We provide a lot of support to crime victims and their family. So a little bit about Rise Up Rochester. Rise Up Rochester started in 2008 as the You Bet I Told campaign. And later in 2009, we merged with another not-for-profit and we became Rise Up Rochester. Rise Up Rochester, we had many programs. We first started off with just our back to school billboard contest and our support groups. We have a support group called Moving Forward that meets twice a month. I'm a survivor of that support group. Rise Up Rochester started out of my church, my home church, Baber African Methodist Episcopal Church. So I started attending the support group, and I don't know if you all you hear a lot of people say hurt people hurt people. I was a woman who was very hurt, lost a nephew who was a youth minister, lost a boyfriend who, I watched being murdered. So during that time, I was hurt. Attending those support groups gave me the tools to use to be able to move forward, and I just saw where we could be doing so much more. So we started partnering with RIT and Dr. Shard, CPSI, and creating positions, the homicide response team, because what we noticed there was a lot of a lot of empathy during those scenes. So I'm on that. I'm with the coordinator, a social worker, and we respond to those homicides and, try to serve as the liaison between RPD and the community and the hospital. So it's difficult, but we get it done. We have SERVE, which is our hospital base, and Mr. Owens, I'm going to let him talk more about that because he's the coordinator for that program. We have our Stop the Violence Billboard contest, which we're just kicking off. And it's giving students the opportunity to take a stand against violence. Like this year, our theme is Imagine a World Without Violence. And these young people, they'll draw a picture and we post it up all over. Right now, it's a partnership with the Rochester City School District. I am trying to get it across our county because it's needed. What else did we do? We have an outreach team that goes out in high shooting areas or areas have been impacted by crime, and they're out there and they're passing out resources. So we collaborate with other organizations such as Pathway to Peace, SNUGS, Community Resource Collaborative, IBERO, and we get out there. We realize we're in this fight. We're not in this fight alone. We got to come together to work together in order for people to see what's done. Moms, which a lot of you, I wish Deb could have been here with me today. Moms Demand Action, they play a big part with us. We're boots on the ground. Moms Demand Action does a lot of our advocacy will work for us. So that's something good. And they partner with us on all events, showing us how to, teaching us how to store guns. It's not about having guns, it's storing them safely. And, and that's all we're about. What else do we have? A young men's group, Boys to Men. A lot of at-risk youth that we're working with. We meet with them once a week and teaching them life skills. You'll be surprised. A lot of our young people in the city, they're not privileged to, certain things. So we try to show them things, something simple as sitting around the table and eating a meal together. They love it. They come consistent. They may not go to school consistently, but they come to our program. And it's because we're pouring love into them and we're showing them the right way. So that's that. Did I miss anything? And like I said, I support teams.
Let's see if we can put that so the people can get it recorded. Okay. Then I can move it around. Yeah.
So this is just our community board. It's just showing the staff and some of the families that we work with, staff, some of the community partners that we work with and services they provide. But the support group, I just have to say our support group is led by survivors, survivors of violence. Marcella, Retha, Rogers, and Miss J. Retha and Marcella lost sons. They started the support group just as I did and realized that they needed, I watched them as they grow, and I grew, and I said, hey, you know what? You guys should be able to lead the support group. What other way that you can comfort a mother? I haven't lost a child, but it's, that relationship between those mothers. I have our support group, and I hate to say it, it has grown. It has went from 5 people. Now we're serving over 20 people. And and it's good because you know that those people are getting the support and the tools they need to be able to move forward. I don't know where my life, like I said, I didn't choose this work. This work chose me. I just remember, praying to God and asking him, use me in whatever way he did, choose to. And here I am. So been working real close. We went from volunteers. It went from volunteers in 2009 up until 2021, where we now have a staff of 12. And an operating budget over 500,000. So, and we survived off of donations all those years. So, I said, when I say God is good, God is good. Yeah. So, yes, he is all the time. So I'm gonna let Kivo talk a little bit about our SERVE program, which is pretty much our hospital base.
Okay, I'd like to take a quick picture. So.
And I did fail to mention that one of our programs, which is new, we provide wraparound services to victims. You may think it's similar to what Kivo does, but it's not. We provide wraparound services. So a person may come to us, my house has been shot up, I can't stay in my house, what do I do? So we create a safety plan for those individuals, and we relocate, we may move, help with movement. As you know, we're in a housing crisis right now, so it's kind of difficult finding people other places to go. But we do try to go out in the community to see what's causing these shootings, or work with those other organizations to see if they know what's happening. RPD, sometimes we have to call. I have a great relationship with RPD. I don't believe that some of this work we can't do without them. So we do have some that we work with, and they help us to, navigate the best way to support that family. So those are some of the things: housing, food, transportation, clothing, or whatever. So I'm gonna let Kivo talk.
Good morning again, everyone. I'm Kivo Owens. I'm the SERVE coordinator, and SERVE stands for Community Engagement to Reduce Victimization, Re-victimization, and also Retaliation. Like Wanda was saying, that program is funded by RIT, but we work closely. I work under Wanda because there's an overlap in services in what we do. Brief history on myself and how I got into this work. First, I was excited about coming here and being able to share a story that I've never shared with no one, because I was coming into a place of God. So I said, well, I can finally tell this story publicly, just because some people are kind of funny when you talk about the Lord, our Savior. It is what it is. But I can do that here, and I was excited. I was actually looking forward to getting in front of the church and sharing this story. So
We'd love to have you do that. We'll talk to you later.
This year, 2024, makes 10 years for me that I've been released from serving 10 years in prison. So this year's a big year for me. And as I thought about coming here, I was saying, well, my first night in prison all those years ago, there was a popular artist named Carrie Underwood, and she had a song, Jesus Take the Wheel. And all they give you, because you have to stay in quarantine. So there's quarantine when you first get to prison. So I had to stay in my cell for like 3 days. They give you a little headphone set, and you can plug into A, B, or C. So it's country, it's pop, and then there's a news station. And I was tired of pop, and I really didn't want to hear the news. I was about to do 10 years in prison. So I said, well, let's see what country has. And Carrie Underwood came on, and that song, Jesus Takes a Wheel, came on. And And I remember that song wholeheartedly, and I just said, well, I got 10 years to do. I'm 21 years old. I don't know how I'm gonna get there. Please take over. And I cried hard that night. Eventually I came home. I did my time in a maximum prison. I don't have a scratch on me. By the grace of God, I don't have a scratch on me. And I've seen some things there. And there's no doubt in my mind that I didn't do that alone. I definitely was a passenger in getting through that time. So in coming home, I really, really worked hard on changing my life and walking the right path and just allowing God to lead me. I survived. Not only did I survive, but the poor man, the victim that I shot, I did time for attempted murder. So I was on the other side of a gun for a long time. I grew up around violence. I grew up being violent. That's all I knew. Hit me, I'll hit you back. Get a stick, I'll get a knife. Get a knife, I'll get a gun. That's all I ever knew. But in changing those ways, I started working. I got a family. I got married. And then in 2021, I lost my baby brother to a gun. And I said, well, and again, just constant reminders of my everyday life. I don't like to be scripted. I like to be genuine. And when I talk, I put it on the map to come here. It took me 30 minutes to get here. I live in West Henrietta now. I don't live in the city. But that again is by the grace of God. He's blessed me. So I was living there. I was just buying that house when my baby brother was murdered. And I said, well, I have to help. I have to do something. I have to get on the other side. I have to get on the preventative side of this gun violence in my city. Because I was a perpetuator of gun violence for a while, me and my friends. What can I do? And in my mom's time of mourning and grief, Wanda was at her house every day, not talking, not bothering her, just being present. And I said, well, I'm gonna go find Wanda and see how I can help her because she seems to be genuine in what she's doing. And then when I came to Wanda, I said, well, Wanda, I want to help. I want to talk to young men. And that's why I was happy when he said the youth are coming in here. Because your life can change like that. It only took me 5 seconds to shoot that man. I did 10 years for it. And his life is still affected every day as well as mine. But again, that's another story. So yeah, I asked Wanda, how can I help? And she said, well, I have something else for you. And it was just being the serve coordinator. And as you listen to me speak, you can't tell that I'm an inner city kid. I grew up in the city my whole life. But again, by the grace of God, somehow my mom found ways to get us in Catholic school when I was a kid. I went to Corpus Christi and we got funded for that. And I went to Siena. So I'm able to articulate myself. So I'm able to use my lived experience to help translate for others and then see how we can work collaboratively to help the problem. So we had meetings with people at Strong and everywhere else down in the city and just see how we can continue to combat the problem, but also help those in immediate need. Now I'll get into what I do on a daily basis. I'm what's called hospital based. So when someone's shot, stabbed, beaten, any blunt force trauma, the social workers at Strong give me a call and I respond there. So I respond to victims at their bedside most times. Most days I'm in a hoodie and jeans because I'm going inside the hospital. And a big part of helping people is relationships. So when they see me, I have to look like someone that I have to look like them, honestly. I have to be them. I have to be able to relate, which is obviously something I can do well. And then be that conduit to translate and get on the other side to get them help and assistance. Now, what that help and assistance is, a lot of times when people are affected by violence, it happens within a 1 mile radius of their home. A lot of people don't know that. It's about 80% of the time. It's within a 1 mile radius of home. So they can't go back home as soon as they get discharged from the hospital. But hospitals is an institution. It's big business. They need their beds. It's treat them, mistreat them. That's what we call it. As long as they're not bleeding, they gotta get out. Couple pain meds, and that's where we step in at. I'm able to place people in safe housing. Wanda's graced me with a credit card where if someone calls me 10 p.m., 11 p.m., 1 a.m., and they need a place to stay because they've been attacked, I can book them a hotel. And lucky I've been to these hotels and safe places to build relationships where I don't gotta go physically anymore. I can call and say, hey, this is Kiva Rise at Rochester. I have someone coming. I'll be there in the morning. Like, cause I have a 2-year-old and you guys raise kids, you know. You have to tiptoe around the house when they're sleeping. So I don't want to come out my room once he's in his room. So I'm able to do that. And then from there, what the assistance looks like for me is, but once I get them in safe housing, now is how I help stabilize them upon being discharged from the hospital. That stabilization looks different for everybody. I had one young lady that had got shot in the midsection. When I say young lady, I mean young. She got shot 2 weeks after her 18th birthday. She was bleeding through her gauze like you wouldn't believe, her padding, her bandages. I was able to go to CVS or Walgreens, whatever, whoever owns them now, and buy her a bunch of bandages, but also with our opioid epidemic, there's a control on how many pain meds that they can distribute. So I had to go get her a bunch of ibuprofen and Tylenol, extra strength Tylenol, but I'm able to do that. And that to me is awesome because it helps stabilize them, help them get their mindset, get stable mentally and emotionally while they think about what just happened to them, but also what the transition is going to look like for them back to regular life. Now, if they didn't have a regular life, I work collaboratively. When I say regular life, I mean maybe working a job or attending school, college, or whatever. I work with other organizations to help get them enrolled in school or get them some job training or whatever it is they want to do. And what we gather together in our safety plan is the best move for them to not retaliate first and foremost. Because when we're talking about young men between the ages of 18 and 30, the first thing what they want to do is what they call spin the block. They want to retaliate. He did this to me. I can't walk out here until I do something back to him. So that's one of the first things we want to do is have conversations with them young men. Sometimes they don't always go how we want them to go, but I call them, I talk to them, and I work again with other community organizations because it takes a village, right? I can't do everything. I don't think I can do everything. I know I can't. But working together with other partners, if I always like to use the analogy of there's more than one way to get to the number 7. What I mean by that, 5 + 2 = 7, 6 + 1 = 7, 4 + 3. So if I say one thing to this young man one way, he may not get it. But if Wanda says it coming from a motherly perspective, he may get it, or he may not. We have older men that work with us, they may say it and it makes sense. But we keep trying until what we're saying makes sense because we all have the same common goal for those people. We help with security deposits, getting families into homes because security deposits are expensive. After COVID, a lot of landlords are real tight on who they let in their properties. So they may want security deposit, first month's rent, and last month's rent. So if we're talking about an apartment that costs, say, $1,200 a month, that's $3,600. They want on the spot, cash. People can't come up with that. That's over a month and a half of salary for a good person with a good job. Luckily, we're in a position to where we're able to assist and work with other organizations. Hey, I can do the security deposit. Can you do the first month's rent? Hey, let's reach out to someone else, see if they can do the last month's rent. And then Wanda also has relationships where we're helping find furniture now, appliances. Again, it's just continuing to work together with our community because we're all one and we're all affected by everything else. The young men that she spoke about, she forgot to mention that they're ex-Kia boys. And we know that they were not just in the city stealing Kias, they were around Monroe County stealing Kias. So we're all affected by what goes on in the city. It spreads. And what we have to do is continue to just work together to hone in and really be a village and wrap around those people in need. Yeah, and I can go on and ramble more and more, but you may have some questions and we can get more direct in what we do and how it's actually done.
Anyone have a question? We saw, we were discussing it before you came, there was an article just recently on Mayor Evans' press conference where, the gun violence was down. He said he wasn't pleased with the numbers still, but he's pleased that it's decreasing. Do you have any ideas, either one of you, why we made, some progress this past year? Can you,
And people, he just said it all, it's the work we do collaboratively, numbers are down, and like you said, I wish, it would work me out of a job. Because, I hate to see families have to go through this. But the work we're doing is showing that funding needs to be there, funding needs to be there for violence prevention workers so that we can capture it right there. I'm not saying, a lot of credit got to RPD, but they left the violence prevention workers out. And we did a lot of work. Yeah.
The boots on the ground. So like I said, I usually have on hoodie, jeans, and I forgot to mention my boots. That's what I wear on my feet.
Mhm.
Not just me, but also outreach workers in the city. So when we say outreach workers, they're canvassing, they're knocking on doors, they're at recreation centers, they're at basketball games, football games in the schools, and they're actually interacting with these young people that may not have a support system. That's important. These young men that may not have a positive masculine figure in their life, that too is important. Or a caring mother in their life. That's important. So we definitely feel like we've taken part in the numbers being down. We work with the restorative hub with RCSD. When kids have an issue at school or even fights, and we've seen family from outside come up to schools and get involved in fights. We have restorative circles. So we work with RCSD, and we've been lucky enough to have that. Wanda has that relationship with one of the head social workers at RCSD that calls us in for that. Conflict resolution skills, those things. And again, just getting ahead, being boots on the ground, we also hear chirps of what may be going on, who has problems with who, and we're able to get ahead of it in that way. So where a lot of law enforcement is reactive, we try to be proactive. We want to be ahead of it. And how do you do that? Continue conversation, continue relationship, really with our hands on the pulse of what's going on in our community. Because it's no secret, these young people and kids, it's not as random as the news would make it has seen. They talk about it on the social media all the time. They talk about it in school. They talk about it in the neighborhood recreation centers or wherever they're hanging. Oh, we're gonna see such and such, and we really work hard on knowing what's going on, but also having a relationship with them, because that too is important in de-escalating the situation, a relationship with that person, a trusted relationship with that person or group.
Who's doing that kind of work? Knowing what they're talking about, is that under you guys as well, or is that this village kind of approach where
Not knowing it.
what's going on, who they're talking to, they're going to
That's
see how to
us,
intervening, who's doing that?
It's us.
Is it really? Okay.
So that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But we work closely also with 585 Snug, Pathways of Peace,
Yeah.
because they too have outreach workers that are out in the community, in the schools, and we call each other, we talk to each other. Communication is extremely important. I always say information is the most valuable resource in the world. It literally is. That's how social media makes so much money. They share information.
What I'm thinking about is, when you look at all of us here and the two of you, and it's like there's a brick wall going right straight down through here. We're in different worlds, absolutely different worlds. And how do we bridge that gap? One way is your committee, through your committee, contacted these great folks and they're here. But unless you're staying overnight, you're going home. And we're going back to our lives. And I don't. I assume we're all thinking, oh my gosh. What,
Yeah, I mean,
what can we do?
our hearts, I don't know, I'm sure I speak for many of us, our hearts just want to help.
Exactly.
That you're speaking of, and Kivo, I hear all the things you said, and my heart just is crying and wants to help. But then I think, who am I to think that I have the perspective, the knowledge, the whatever those people really need? So what is it that we can do? How can we help? Is it strictly, I mean, being honest, is it really through funding? Or if we do have that, want to reach out to help in other ways, are there other ways for us to help?
There's plenty of ways. Have any of you heard of the Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition? None of you heard of them? Oh, I'm gonna have to get.
The wall that he's
Would you,
speaking
would you
of.
say that a little louder?
The Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition. So it's a anti-gun violence coalition led by City Councilman Willie Lightfoot.
Yeah, I read it in the Democrat Chronicle. They get good publicity.
Yeah, so
I still haven't heard though that rock.
Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition.
Rock against.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's basically a coalition of different people in the community. We have a lot of people who serve outside of the city of Rochester because, like we said, violence impacts people anywhere. In the city with us, it may just be the day-to-day shootings. Sometimes in the suburbs, it's the suicides that people are seeing and they're faced with. So a lot of people ask how we can. Donations as always, volunteer. Get to know, just get to know community. Maybe you don't think that your ideas are not needed because, sometimes like I'm a thinker, I could sit in a room and I'm sitting there like, what can we do? Case management, maybe it's something that we're missing in case management, with our families. Like Kibo said, information is the best thing.
Yeah.
The resource that you can have. So, and that's one thing we try to do is to provide those resources and get those resources out there. And like I said, and spread where a lot of violence prevention programs, they have target areas where they can serve. With Rise Up Rochester, we serve the whole Monroe County. So if there's a teacher or anyone in Fairport or, any other wants us to come and speak or, speak or do a presentation, we can do that.
I would say also, access.
Access.
What do I mean by access? Open and genuine access. The youth in our community, they don't know what this world looks like.
Mhm.
So in their mind is literally concrete jungle. That's all they see, that's all they know. They don't know about nature. What does that access look like? I don't know. I don't know what you have going on for youth as far as extracurricular activities or after school time, but maybe an invite. So maybe the money doesn't fix everything.
Mhm.
Experiences. My wife and I just agreed this year is the last year of buying Christmas gifts. We're going to start giving our children experiences because that changes thinking. And once we change the thinking, we can start changing the actions. So for a lot of youth in our city, they don't know that this world exists. And they really feel like they aren't allowed to not only come on the other side of that wall that you spoke about, but even approach the wall. How do I know that? I'm a kid from the inner city. I grew up in Rochester my whole life. I felt like I had no business in Fairport, Webster, anything east of the river, truthfully speaking. I'm out here a lot now. My wife, family's from Fairport. They were Red Raiders and the neighbors Pittsburgh. But before that, I didn't come out. I didn't come out here much. So just that access is a huge thing. Again, it's just changing perspective and beginning to change thinking, but then also bringing our community together.
You hear so much about people who are released from prison and that the recidivism rate is so huge because So I'd love to hear if this is on point to what we're talking about, is to what you faced when you came out of prison and how you navigated that tumultuous, scary, hopeful time.
Support. Luckily for me, I was in an amazing position where I had a support system. My kid brother was already an employee of the city of Rochester. And I had to humble myself and know that I didn't know everything. So when I left, he was a kid. When I came home, he was a man. I did 10 years. And that man, being my younger brother, knew things that I didn't know. And he's like, Kiva, you got to get your CDL. You can get a job with the city. But he was a part of that support system for me. My other brother, I had tickets on my license. I couldn't get my CDL until I paid those tickets. I had that support there. I couldn't afford it. I didn't have any money. I had to go in Walmart and buy boxes my first night home. I didn't have anything. That support. And then also when
What is CDL? What's CDL?
commercial driver's license. Yep, yeah, I used to drive trucks. I keep my license good just in case, because it is an amazing tool. We'll always need trucks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I keep my license good. I have a family, so I just know the value of that tool that I was able to get upon coming home. But again, it was the support around me that helped lead me to that. And then just the emotional support of my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. We reconnected, and just that emotional support. So she's actually a lead social worker at RCSD herself. So she's big on social emotional support, and she was in my head. And I didn't know she was in my head, but it helped me a lot to again change my thinking. And then she exposed me to some things. Like I said, her family's from out here, so we came out here and just hung out a lot, and it was good. It was different.
One thing that that you said previously struck me is, because I have a young adult son, maybe he's outside of the range that you mentioned, but the young men attitude of retaliation, or if somebody did it to me, then it's okay for me to do it back to them. I mean, I feel that, and it's very hard to know how to combat that as an attitude, whether it's personal or against the government or the police force or anything. That I think that attitude is somewhat prevalent even outside of the city. I would be very curious to understand how you guys speak to that and reach the hearts of young people.
Thank you, being that I was one of those.
I'm not gonna let you talk, but like I said, just meeting those individuals where they at. Like Hebo said, we're in the restorative hub. I am a ex-employee of the Rochester City School District, where I worked in a room called the Help Zone for social and emotional support. You gotta talk and listen and let them talk. You can't over talk them,
Yeah.
let them talk and find out what's going on. I remember a young man who came into my room, he used to come in my room all the time. And I was always doing extra things. That's just who I am. My mother always said, someone hungry, you feed them, true missionary. Yeah, that was who she was. So I kept a hot plate in my room. I used to make grilled cheese sandwiches for the kids because they didn't get, decent meals. And I'm just gonna be honest. So he would come into my room all the time, and I'm always feeding him. And I had a teacher. Me and the teacher bumped heads, but she didn't know what was going on. Oh, he's just doing it to get out of the mom, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, no, that's not his story. So I called her in for a meeting, and we sat down. I said, do you realize his mom, he's the caretaker of his younger siblings. His mom is working triples, doubles to make their ends meet. He's not eating half the time. Mom's doing what she can do to put a roof over his head. She felt so bad. And once that got out, it's not to tell his business, but once I shared that information and she showed, some compassion,
Right.
he was able to thrive. And he was an excellent student. He was an A student. But he just needed that extra support. And so you just gotta really find out like what's needed. Rooms like this is this is like a restorative circle. You know, you bring kids in, we don't want to talk about, like Kiva said, we work with the Kia boys. My Kia was stolen right from my workplace, right at my office, you know? But I still felt, you know, we're in court with these individuals and they look at us like, they think this lady crazy, you know? And they knew who took my car and came and told me who took it. But, you know, it's not to look at them and judge them. It's just like a trend. Social media is destroying our kids. We just have to show these young people a different lifestyle. Just to show them a different way. Whether, like people said, taking them horseback riding. We're getting ready to take a couple of them that we're having a DCJS is having a youth conference. Take them to the conference, let them share their experiences. We're going to be taking them to NBA games. Something that they don't get to do that most families, you know, get to do. I asked one girl, you know, where did you go on vacation? She was so happy. She said, well, I went to the beach. And I said, oh, that's good. Which beach? You know, Myrtle, you know, she said, no, I went to Charlotte Beach. That was vacation for her. And I'm like, wow, you know, so just try to show them a different way. You know, like I said, we all have a role to play. We all have a role to play. I don't think it matters where we are. You know, maybe you can invite them out, come out and volunteer. We have a lot of community, community events. You come out.
Yeah, I was thinking, you talked about access. We have this beautiful canal here. If they had bikes and just biked for 5 miles and blew off steam.
You know,
You know?
I came out with Leadership Rochester. I used to work at Fairport Baptist years ago. And when I came back, I was like, wow. I came with
Walk it,
Leadership
you know,
Rochester
bring the
and was
dogs, you
walking.
know, or-
It's beautiful. I was like, so I even said, I gotta come out here. They got a real spot. So yeah, you gotta just make some changes. I like that. The bike riding, taking them fishing. We already planning some things like
Got
that.
passionate euchre tournaments too, which are, down in Fellowship Hall, or it's intergenerational, you know, I don't know if they come to something like that, but, you know, it's just play cards, you know, little snacks and.
Just something different.
Yeah,
Because what
yeah.
it does is it just opens and unlocks parts of their minds and but also their emotional nucleus that they didn't even know was there, like, because they don't access that much. Every day is survival. So instead of survival, we're just having a good time.
Mm.
And my take on the retaliation, so for me, the first thing I always tell them is just humility. First of all, humble yourself. You really, really have to be humble. And then that again, for me, takes on a religious perspective. It's just by the grace of God, be humble, please. And then I ask them, well, what do you want the outcome to be? And then I share my story with them. Because I didn't want my outcome, what happened, to really be my outcome.
I think that's a very good approach.
Like, what do you really want? And like Wanda said, we're really big on then now seriously letting them tell us what it is they want and how they feel. And it may not make sense to us, just like with my toddler who's 2 years old is yelling at me. It don't make much sense, but he has something to say, so I let him get it out. And then I try to redirect, but this is something that I'm learning now in my everyday life. Again, I don't have all the answers. So I'm learning again. We tell our 13-year-old, like, KJ has a different set of parents than what you had. We didn't know the things that we knew now that we know. We didn't know the things then that we know now. And so the same thing for them. They may yell and scream, and now that they're calm down and they done cursed you out, everyone else, F this, F that, because that's what they get into. It's fine. It's fine. So it's about us, again, similar to Tyler's, just being able to be neutral, keep our calm. And then now it's like, okay, now where we going with this? And then we're really able to get somewhere.
Couple things. It sounds like actually you cover a broad swath of everything where help would be needed, but nevertheless, primarily you're on the response side. You're on the response side to violence has happened and you're going to respond, which is so critically needed. And we've been around the same issue, but how to get in front of it in the first place, how to be on the side. And you mentioned pathways to peace, which but how do you get to the point where the violence isn't there in the first place, or there's a different way of living. I want to say something a little controversial, maybe, in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement and the idea that, you know, defund the police, which, you know, raised red flags and people got all upset about, you know, gee, Blue Lives Matter and all this. I don't want to say nonsense, all, you know, there's no problem with either one, but how do we change the mindset and or get to the point where we're talking preventative, which seems to be where Malik Evans' emphasis where he would like it to be, versus on the side of we have fewer homicides. Of course, that's important, but it's the very end of this story versus the beginning. You know, how to change that. Is it possible?
So I agree, and I am one, I had a lot of mothers who approached me like, they act like my son's life didn't matter, that's how they felt. I think that Black Lives Matter had an opportunity where they could have educated, you know, a lot of our families on a lot of things. Really disappointed, I am a strong believer in Black Lives Matter, but, I wanted to see a little more. Community policing, we see this, like I said, it's not that we don't work with the police, we do work with the police, because like I said, they have a role to play as well. But it's just educating, we gotta get out there, try to educate those families, put those, people do not what they know not. So if they don't know, they have these programs to help you, guess what, they're not. You have a lot of mothers, fathers, single fathers who are all here, they're trying, but like as Keeble said, those serve meetings that he said at, we bring, you know, individuals to those tables and try to show people different ways. You know, you can either go this way, you see that picture down there? They don't have to end up being like this, that's our thing. They don't have to end this way. You're either gonna go to jail or to prison. What can we do to help them?
So what I think about Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter and just being on the preventative side of this is, like Wanda said, we feel strongly about community policing. Maybe not in the way it was first in inception, but in the way of relationships and working collaboratively. We feel that Black and blue and orange and green and all colors should work. Everyone has to work together because we all share this land, this community. And what that would look like in practice is if, what's your name?
Robert.
Robert? Okay, so if Robert has a relationship with Wanda and Wanda know her son has a gun under the bed, then Wanda may tell, hey, you might want to come over at 8 p.m. and give you the gun. This is just hypothetical because this is the importance in how strong the relationship, because she trusts Robert. We have a relationship. I know him. He comes, he says hi to me. He's not just a badge. If that makes sense to what I'm saying as far as community policing, instead of just riding around in patrol cars, get out. Because that mother, that aunt, that grandmother, that uncle where are they keeping the guns? They're not keeping them in their pants all day, every day. They're at the houses. They're there. Family members know that they're there, but I don't know this officer. I don't trust him enough so that they won't double back on me or my young person in the house to get the gun out of the house or the knife, or to tell them that, hey, I heard my nephew on the phone last night or on his social media live, they're talking about doing something. Not if she doesn't know Robert. If she knows Robert, then they can have that conversation. And that, in my belief, is wholeheartedly how we get ahead of it, is working together, but working together first by building relationships with each other. And then now we know and trust each other, and knowing and trusting each other will allow us again to share information. When we're sharing that information, we can get ahead of it. We can be preventative. Just like in real war, information.
But then you have the wall, you know, how do we build those relationships? I mean, most of us here are not Black. Okay, so we've got that difference. We've got the whole just basic racism. We got all kinds of reasons not to get this relationship going. And so, how, I mean, this is a start, obviously, we're different people because we've heard your story. But boy,
I disagree with you, Paul. I think we're not doing as much as we could. But Sue here is, down in the city, talking
Francis Center.
to people. How many times did your group go?
Well, now we're going every other month because Sanctuary House goes one
Yeah.
month and Francis Center goes another month.
But I know Dave DuPont is down on Thursday morning serving breakfast at Asbury Church. And when we talked to his son with the social justice, he said that's the best thing you can do is just the same thing, communication. Go down there for breakfast and talk to the people.
Communications.
I mean, we have a cook, you don't have to cook, Pat DuPont told us. Just go down there. I think it's difficult with COVID things for people to want to go, into groups, but I think, I'm really pleased to hear there's other things that we could work on, and that's what I have heard when I have gone down, just, go and just sit with them. If there's a problem with, they're in the hospital with a friend or something. We don't do enough, but I think we do have a small start, and I think all those groups could be expanded.
This
Any
is a
chance,
start.
James Smith,
James.
James Smith? He
James.
runs Nativity Academy in downtown
I
Rochester.
haven't met him.
Really want to introduce you to a very good friend of mine. And I would like to introduce you to him. He has the middle school that's for 5th through 8th grade, inner city, and fabulous programs. And I admit that leading question, I wanted to know your answer, but the idea of, can you get in the school system? How do you change the trajectory of the lives of folks that otherwise would be on a track like you described? And I don't know anyone that does it better than this friend of mine, James. They got 250 kids there, but he speaks to the 20,000 that are in Rochester City schools, trying to give an alternative, and it'd be fabulous. And I'm sure that you should go talk to him and talk to his kids. I'm gonna make that happen. Another thing, I'm Mason, and so through James and this, we all do the little bit we can, but so I employ a young man from downtown Rochester who comes from circumstance that would fit right into the circle you're talking about, right? And it's little enough, but we did a job for Wild Wings, which is a nature center in Mendon Park, and set up a relationship between James School and that wildlife sanctuary to bring kids from the inner city out there. And I bet you that if you haven't, we could tap you into that program. So I'm all about what you're talking about, the connections between different groups that are doing different things that are helpful to either show another way of life or literally lead a different life, as in the case of James' kids in his school.
The experience I had, but it's way back. I lived in East Aurora, New York. It's all, white community pretty much. But our friend that was the head of the Boys and Girls Club, he presented something to our church. And my oldest son was 12 then. And he said, hey, can we have one of those kids that are going to be coming from Buffalo? Yeah, I said, sure. So we had him. He stayed with us for a week, and he was so unsure of what was going to happen and how he was going to get fed and things like that. But it just took a matter of days of living together and seeing each other, and I loved him. And he stayed a week. He did all kinds of things with the neighborhood kids. We had 2 neighbors next door that would not have come out of their house for that week, but the rest of the kids did, and had a good time. I kept in touch with them. Took them back to he lived on the 3rd or 4th floor of the big high rises. You're familiar with what they did in Buffalo. And we eventually lost contact. I made contact again through someone that knew how to connect to people 20 years later. And he called me at 7 in the morning after he got my letter. And we just loved each other.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Our time is up.
Thank you.
And we will be communicating with you more to see if we can find out if there's some other ways that we could make some interconnections. Really pleased you brought the youth in. We've got a really great youth group, and that might be a chance to do.
From the access point of view that you're talking
Yeah.
about, I'd love to.
I just want to thank you guys for sharing something that, is a witness to God's love and care for both of you. And I know I can't even imagine the pain and the estrangement from God that you both felt so deeply. And I just feel that we can't get through that kind of pain without God. Like, I just think what a witness, and thanks so much for sharing and going back to that place that cannot have been.
Okay, and you have cards to hand out?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Even for the young people, thank you so much. Your school, I'll put some information, maybe you guys can enter the Stop the Violence Billboard contest. And we're looking for these boys. So, something may be happening in your school, maybe, share that,
A minute.
You just pass them around, yeah. Or I say go out the door.
Here, you want me to?
I feel
Take one of these, babe.
when I cast my vote, there's somebody who's coming from the greatness.